Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn. We've had a great week talking with Greg Howard. He's been sharing about how his 42 years in criminal justice just taught him a lot about his faith, and now he's using that even though he's retired from full-time work in criminal justice. He's started a great program called Alpha in Prisons here in central Kentucky, and today we want to share some of those stories of hope that Alpha has provided, this 14-week program that Greg and some volunteers have been doing. But if you missed the first two programs and you want to find out more about his personal journey, how he came to faith, he describes himself as a poser. So if you want to check that out or find out about Alpha, check out our first two programs. They're only 14 minutes long. You can go to our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today. Check those out. But Greg, we want to bring hope to people here, and man, you shared a little bit yesterday about how Alpha has been bringing hope to people that are incarcerated. Could you share some, like, quote, real stories of hope that have happened during this ministry that you've been able to be a part of?
Yeah, I'll start with the first guy. I didn't even mention this guy to you, but I was thinking about it here. His name is David, and I met him in a prison, and he came up to me the minute we got there and said, "Man, do you know me?" And I find I run into people that most of the people that are currently incarcerated, I didn't arrest them, but I have arrested their parents, their grandparents, or aunts and uncles, so pretty typically I'll run into somebody. I said, "Man, I don't know." And he goes, "Well, you know my son. You met my son in prison," that is a tragedy to start with. So, we kind of struck up a conversation, and he got out pretty quick and called me, showed up at my church that first Sunday he was out, which I was really excited about. And since then, we have formed this great relationship where he's got a good job. He's actually the pastor of a small church now.
Wow.
We meet once a week. He calls it, and we're the same age, and he calls it his accountability. That he says, "You're one of the only people I know that I can be totally transparent with about all my trouble." And he said, "You give me an opportunity to feel like that I'm just a regular person, that I've just got trouble like everybody else." So his first name is David, and he is really knocking it out of the park, man. He's doing really good.
Love it. I love it.
And I was just reading you this text message from a guy named John, and I keep track of him. I helped him find a job not too long ago in the construction industry, and it's another part of Alpha. We try our best. If people get out and they want us to be part of their support system, we do the best we can there. And part of that is helping them find jobs. And so I helped him find a job, and he's just, I keep track of him probably once a week. I'll send him a text message, or I'll call him and say, "How you doing, man?" And I seen one right around his Father's Day, and the message he wrote me back about the hope that he now currently has about his future. If you looked back 2 years ago when I first met him at the Fayette County Detention Center, he would not have had any of that. Now he has his children back. He has a full-time job in construction. He has a part-time job in the fast food industry. He was his words were really, the devil will never get me again. And he's on guard for it. We all have to be on guard for that, and we all have to realize that at any particular time we could be vulnerable. So, as a witness and as a person who's following Christ, it's a lifelong process. And he is just now beginning to understand that in a real detailed way. And then there's a woman that we do have a woman's component of this in the Fayette County Detention Center. My wife and a few other ladies facilitate that, but we had a lady we met years ago, and I actually met her in Gio's program, because Gio has a men's component and a women's component, and I met her, and that's just been probably 4 or 5 years ago now, and she's got her children back. She's got full-time job. She's been promoted many times. She's drug-free, which is really a big deal. She has no involvement in her old lifestyle. One of the problems with people is when they get out, they'll keep one foot in the way they used to live and one foot trying to do good, and it just doesn't work ever. And so she has totally separated herself from what was once a bad environment for her, and she's totally, even though it's not easy for her. And her first name's Jackie, and Jackie's and my wife talk regularly, and Keen says all the time, it's just like talking to another friend. That's the power behind how God's working there. And probably the best story of all is a guy named Roy, who had a big football scholarship back in the day at the University of Florida, and he got into a bar fight which would happen to people when everybody was drunk at the time. And he hit a guy, and the guy fell down, hit his head, and killed him. Mm-hmm. So he went to prison. He's been in and out of prison ever since. And Roy and I met at the Fayette County Detention Center, and he didn't like me much, and I didn't really like him much. But that's kind of the way it goes, man. When they find out what I've done, I'm the fault that they're in jail, and they talk terrible to me for a period of time. And then it gets to the point where, well, he's not so bad. And then he ends up being kind of the dad I never had a lot of times.
Well, for people that may have missed our first two programs, Greg served in criminal justice, worked for the police department for a career of 42 years. So that's why when they hear that you've done that, they don't like the old white guy, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, part of it is true there, but what I found with Roy was we just connected on a spiritual way. And he was just beginning his spiritual journey, and I was really still in mine, but moving, hopefully, good, with the help of many other people and God in my life. But Roy and I connected, and he was in every Bible study I did at the jail. He was in every program. I mean, he was in all kinds of stuff. There's a retired circuit judge and I teach a Bible study in the current jail now, and Roy started it. Roy approached me and said, "Hey, Mr. Howard, would you do a Bible study just in our area?" I said, "Well, yeah, man, I'll do it, Roy, but hey, you pick what we're going to study, right?" So he picked the book of Acts, man, and he did it based on prisoners and those kind of things. And then Judge Ishmael and I teach that. Mm-hmm. We're still teaching it. So anyway, so Roy and I have a good connection. So he gets moved out of our local jail into a state prison. And he called me on, they get access to phones if they have money and those things. And he called me recently and said, I need a little help on something. And I said, "All right, man, shoot, what is it?" He said, "Well, I just got off the phone with a friend of mine that is talking about killing themselves." So you mean red flags, right? And I said, "Well, Roy, do you have information about that?" He goes, "I do." And I said, "Do you want me to take care of it for you?" And he said, "I wish you would." So he gives me the information, and it was in another city. And so I called some police friends of mine in another city, and they go looking, and the address was incorrect. And so we find the correct address, and they go to the door, and true enough, the person was going to kill themselves, and there had been some tragedy in their life where there had been another suicide and another murders, and this person just didn't really feel like they had zero hope in life. Mm. So hope is here. It applies for people, but it certainly didn't apply for her. So let's shorten the story up a little bit. They end up taking her to the hospital where she's been getting treatment ever since and doing well. And so that night, I had told Roy when we hung up, "Man, call me back and I'll tell you what happened." So he called him back later that night, and Greg, he sobbed. He said, "I just can't believe." I said, "Well, buddy, you saved her life." So, you can say whatever you want, but the bottom line is 2 years ago, you'd have never called me for that. Mm-hmm. And you know why you did that, right, Roy? And he's sobbing. You're talking about a 6'8", monster-looking guy. And I said, "You know why that is, don't you, brother?" And I said, "God is working through you in a powerful way, Roy, and you know it. You say it. You preach it. You live it. And now here you are taking a step that not many people would take, mm-hmm. and you did it, man, and you saved her."
Wow.
You saved her, brother. And he just was so – his mother called me that night. So his mother's in a nursing home. So he called his mother, and I had talked to his mother before, and he called his mother, and she called me sobbing. Just, "I can't believe my son is like this. It's just so, oh, thank you, Mr. Howard. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And it's just those two lives are forever touched based on Jesus Christ.
So if we got people listening, they feel like, they need to give up on people, Greg, because their loved ones made some mistakes. What would you say to them? I mean, you've obviously dealt with people with incarceration that have made some mistakes, but yet, there's hope for everyone, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, until you take your last breath, I guess. I don't even know. Maybe I was, my wife uses this analogy to me. She goes, "Well, do you think God would forgive Saddam Hussein?" Before I'd want to say, no way, man, that's happening. Right. But, the bottom line is, yes, God wants us all. In my humble approach, I want to be on the narrow road. And I think that everybody has that chance, and don't give up on anybody. And I know I've talked to enough parents to know how hard this is with children and with brothers and sisters and moms and dads. I know it's hard. I know it is. I don't understand addiction very well. But in our jail, in our local jail, most of the people that are in there are centered around some type of addiction issue, whether it be I'm stealing for because I need to support my habit, or I'm doing this, or I'm prostituting myself, or I'm doing something based on an addiction. And I say sometimes you have to make hard choices with them. I mean, there's a lot of stories in Fayette County we don't have time to talk about, but sometimes you have to make hard choices, but you never give up on them. You never quit praying for them. You never quit trying to help them if you can. But, some people that are in active addiction, they'll do things that make you mad.
Well, elaborate on that, though. I mean, when you say hard choices, what does that mean? It's like
sometimes you just can't continue to give kids money or people money. Man, this doesn't work, man. People ask me for money all the time, and they oftentimes when they meet you in the jail, they think you're the bank, and they want money. I don't give anybody money, and sometimes they want to live with you, and sometimes they don't want to work, and sometimes they have an excuse for this or an excuse for that, or they don't want to go drop for some reason if they're in drug court. And I just had a young friend who had been clean for 3 years. Man, he was our poster child. Right? He was a poster child, and he ended up checking himself into a local hospital not too long ago, and somebody prescribed him a prescription medicine, and he kind of went off the deep end, and he just died. I mean, his dad and I are friends, and his mother, and I loved him. And prison ministry is hard, and because you get into a position where you care about these people, and you know that God didn't create them to be the way they are, and they're making bad choices, and you just look at them and say, come on, man, it's common sense. Don't do that. But to people that are in addiction, and so when people are working with those, I mean, you can't look at it like, oh, that's what I would do, but that's certainly not what they do.
So sometimes when you say no, that's actually a form of love.
Yeah, and not just no, but, heck no, right?
Yeah.
So if you quit it, man. I'm not giving you any money. I'm not being a person who enables your what's going to cause death in you. We just had another kid get out who my wife and I just loved desperately, and he went to a rehab center, and he walked away after one day, and he was calling me. I said, man, you're escaped, brother. You've escaped. You have to go back. And he was just so upset at what was going on, and he was just so uncomfortable. But he overdosed in like 2 days, and somebody Narcaned him and brought him back to life. But I was hoping he'd get rearrested, and he did. So he'll be back in my Bible study in the morning. But I hope for those things because I know they're going to end up dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know there's people listening that have loved ones that struggle with addiction, and sometimes you're not helping them, you're actually enabling them. And I've been there with some guys that I've tried to help, and so I know that's tough, but want to encourage you to be strong. Any final words you would want to share to people? I mean, as far as, actually, I just want to ask you, I mean, what's the future look like for you as far as, I mean, I know you're, quote, retired, but you're obviously not retired. What's next for Greg Howard, man?
No, man, the idea is, I teach college as well, so I'll do some of that, but the idea is that we just continue to open our mouths and preach the word, talk to people, share every chance you get, because the people are wanting you to share with them. I mean, people are just waiting for you to say, hey, man, you want to go to church with me, or you want to get involved in this ministry? I've had people ask me all the time if I'm able to talk about it at church. People come up to me that I'm shocked at, that say they want to get involved in prison ministry. And I said, really? Sure, man, we'll take you. So for me, it's just, God's obviously calling me to it, because take a person of my history and say, okay, you're going into prisons and work. That ain't happening. But, don't ever say no.
That's right.
When God's involved. And so what I really hope to happen is that people will see that prison ministry is big and it needs to be from the outside as well. I mean, we have people going into the jails to do stuff, but we need people on the outside, churches on the outside, saying we're willing to take these people in and be their support system. And so my idea is just to expand it until God calls me someplace else.
Well, thanks so much for being with us. It's been a real blessing. I love what God's doing through Alpha and your teams. And if you want to find out more about it, check them out online. That's alphausa.org/prison.
Right.
That's alphausa.org/prison. I'm Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.